Ora então, muito bons dias desde há pouco. Após esta pausa, vamos abordar um dos temas deste nosso segundo Simpósio Internacional de Homeopatia, que é dedicado à investigação científica em homeopatia. E temos connosco o Dr. Michel van Wassenhoven, que é um médico homeopata da Bélgica, belga, portanto, que tem tido um papel de grande relevo a nível do desenvolvimento da homeopatia. Ele foi um dos fundadores da UNO, ou seja, da União dos Médicos Homeopatas da Bélgica, e nisso tem um papel muito meritório, porque a Bélgica, embora seja um Estado pequeno, é um Estado federal. Portanto, tem língua oficial francesa, língua oficial flamenga e ainda o alemão. E, portanto, juntar as três comunidades, as três culturas, as três línguas, não é fácil, e o Dr. Michel teve justamente esse grande mérito de ter posto em marcha essa Associação dos Médicos Homeopatas Belgas, e que permanece hoje como uma associação reconhecida, de grande atividade em prol da homeopatia. Para além disso, ele, desde há uns anos, que desenvolve um trabalho de investigação científica neste projeto chamado DIN-Home, e teve também um papel como deputado no Parlamento Europeu e ainda a nível da comissão que procede ao registro dos medicamentos homeopáticos na Bélgica. Portanto, é alguém particularmente diferenciado e com todos os méritos para nos transmitir aqui estes seus conhecimentos. E eu quero dizer-vos que o que ele vai apresentar a nível de investigação científica em homeopatia é matéria nova. É algo que nós vamos aqui assistir, quase posso dizer em primeira mão, embora ele já tenha feito outras das apresentações anteriores, mas há trabalhos que vão ser aqui apresentados, de facto, em primeira mão. Michel, I want to thank you very much for your presence here in our symposium, with your knowledge and with all your research that you have made till this moment, and I hope you will go on. So it's a great honor for us, and we hope that this research work can achieve the objectives that we all want. The recognition of homeopathy as a therapy of high efficacy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elio. Thank you too, to be here. And thank you for the people on YouTube, because people are looking to us also through the world at this moment. So the aim of the presentation will be separated in three parts. The first part is fundamental research in laboratory about the medicine, homeopathic medicine. What is a homeopathic medicine? That's a question everybody has, I think. Second, we will go through the result, and after that we will say, what can we do with this result? So we are in the part of hypothesis, and then Elio gave me a challenge more. It's to make a resume of all results we have now, and to answer the question today, is homeopathy a placebo alone, or is it more than that? And that is something we can answer today. So homeopathy is controversial because we are using very high dilution. So people that have the classical knowledge of medicines said it is impossible to work because there is nothing into it, because it's too much diluted. That's the argumentation. And you can prove everything with clinical trials. That's the first question. So is it something material or is it immaterial? I learned from my professors that homeopathy is immaterial. But is that true or not? And can molecular research clarify this question? So that is a program we did, DINOM. DINOM is Dynamization Homeopathy. That's the name. And we start in 2014, so we are young in that area. And because I had experience of laboratory research with Professor Bastide in Montpellier, I had a little bit know-how about that, and I tried direct collaboration with different universities. The first one was in Mons in Belgium, and after that we have a second university in Brussels, another one in Louvain-la-Neuve, and also one in Strasbourg in France. So the three universities are really involved and are willing to go on. It are not medical compounds of university, it are chemical compounds and pharmaceutical areas. So we are really on the medicine. So the first publication we did is about nuclear magnetic resonance. It has been published twice, and we'll come back on that. And because we found something, we need to go further. So we try to look at what there is in this remedy with nanotracking analysis. We see particles that are passing, so there is something into it. It may be nanobubbles, so it's still nothing, but then we can lyophilize that solution and we add material. So there is material, I can already say strictly, now this published, there is material in homeopathic medicine. And then we have to make a definition what kind of material it is. That is ongoing. That's a schematic view we have. Thus we start with nuclear magnetic resonance. Then we go on to see the material into it. And the aim is to finish sometime with pharmacology. That's what we are looking for. That is the team that we are working with. So we need a pharmacist to start because we make all our preparation in our own laboratory. We have our own laboratory for preparation. So we have a pharmacist to do that. He's working there and in our laboratory. Then you have the different professor of university. The most active at this moment is Professor Nisten here. And of course, we have also advisory committee that are Professor of Physica, Jean-Marie Demonja, Professor in Nuclear Magnetic Resonance, and Professor Henry, the specialist in molecular therapy. So he's also well known for concept of quantum physics. So first to start, nuclear magnetic resonance, we only try to reproduce the work of Jean-Marie Demonja. So we use the same tools and we did the same thing, but instead of Jean-Marie, we did a full lines of preparation and 3 manufacturing lines after each other to have very strong data at the end. And when you use nuclear magnetic resonance, what you are doing, you put your solution in a magnetic field and you see what happens. And normally the molecules, if there are, or even water, will be oriented in a direction of the magnetic field because they are bipolar. So water is bipolar, so it will be oriented. And we are measuring the time needed to get that. It is pure water, it is very fast. And then you stop and you see the time, it go back to a chaotic situation. That T1, T2, that are the 2 measurements we are doing with that. Doing that, we saw that water is not just water, because there is a slowing down of the time needed to have the orientation in the same direction of a magnetic field, and the same for the T2. So at that moment, we know that water is not common water. Homeopathic remedy is not just water. And we call dynamic pharmacy because when you don't dynamize your product, you don't have that phenomenon. you have always the same results. So dynamization is essential to get that kind of results. If you have too much oxygen above your preparation, it will give a bias in your measurement that has been confirmed in our second publication. So if you want to know much more, you have here the last publication done by Jean-Louis Demanja in the Journal of Molecular Liquids. It is a traditional review with peer review committee. It has been accepted and published on 15 August of this year. So it's very, very new. What he did is to take all the data of us, but of 3 other teams, putting all data together in one program and looking if the results are still strong, and they are still strong. You'll be sure that at 30 CH, you still have the same phenomenon, even better. The more you are going in the dynamization process and dilution, but it's not really a dilution, when we are going in the dynamization process, the phenomenon is more clear. You can make more differentiation between remedies. So the question is at that moment, that water is not common water. Why? Is it a structural organization of the water, still without material? Or is it something in the solution that is responsible for this slowing down of the orientation of the particles in the water? Or is it both? To go further, we just try to use a very classical tool, the high-performance liquid chromatography. Chromatography, you are putting your liquid into it and you are looking, you have a diagram with the different molecules that you have. If you have gelsemium, you will find gelsemin, you will find semperverin, and that is typical at the markers of the plant. And each plant has a marker. So when we have that, you can see what happens. And up to, see here we started with de-dynamization, do 10 by 10. And then we see that the component of the raw material, so gelsemin, semperverin for gelsemium as example, can be detected up to 6DH. At 6DH, the quantities of this component are no longer measurable. You see a peak, this peak is unstable by different measurements, so it's still there, but it's too little to be measured how much product you have. On 7DH, you don't find anymore gelsemin or semperverin. It has been excluded. It is no more there. So don't look in homeopathic remedy for the original substance. They have disappeared. Conclusion, at 8DH or 4CH, all homeopathic remedy are safe. This is already implemented in Belgium for registration, because if you have a toxic product, the European Commission said 12CH, Avogadro number, is safe, but not before. That's not true. With that kind of publication, we get a difference in the politics. Politics change the rules for registration in Belgium following that. Of course, we will confirm that. No, we know the water is not common water. We know that the original material is disappearing. So what do we have? So we use nanotracking analysis. That's in our laboratories. The machinery is there. You have here a pump. So you put your product in a syringe. It's for diabetes syringe, so it's 1 cc. It's no more than 1 cc. And this machine is putting it in a very slow, very slowly, the product into the machine, and you see what passed before a camera. And you see what there is into it or not. First of all, I want to show you some example of particles we see. What is very interesting is the last one here. You have one separated particles, isolated. Why don't they form the chain? No, this particle will go through faster than the other one because it's lighter. then this binded by electrical forces, not chemically. But this kind of image, you see here 3 particles going around, so because you will see with the film, but it's very dynamic. It's not so slow, and it's very dynamic. So you see that the particle, some are together, and some are even in a long file, and some are alone. So they are not the same kind of particle. It's very typical, these images for argentum metallicum. We have not so beautiful image for other medium, but argentum has that. This is cuprum 4CH. So as 4CH is the first dilution you can put into water, because before that you have to make a trituration because it's not soluble in water, and that's what you see. So you see a lot of particle passing. A very little one are under 100 nanometer. The other one are bigger, up to 300 nanometer. And you see that it's very coherent. You see that the particles are passing together. Some are slow, some are more rapid, but the most are homogeneous. If we look now at the same preparation without dynamization, so it's the same, but we didn't make a dynamization, and that's what we see. The difference is that the homogeneity that you can see is no more there. You have big olefants that are passing there. So you see very big particles. We don't know what it is, probably bubbles, we don't know. But it is passing, it's not the same. So we can expect that we will have difference in the result between dynamized and undynamized product. This is just for the illustration because it has been done last week. This is a product, Nigella sativa 5CH, but in other products were all in water, pure water, because the machine doesn't accept alcohol preparation, because there are silicone joints and it should be solved. So here we diluted 1 to 10 to have that percentage of alcohol is accepted by the machine, and we pass that product from a firma from France, and we see that we have at this 1 to 10, this is diluted 1 to 10 without dynamization, just diluted, and you see that you have 854 million particles by milliliter, that we never get so much particle. This is a product, it is oil, because Nigella sativa is oil. And we see that. When we make a 6CH dynamized, this one, you see that the number of particles is less low, but this is still in analysis, but it is very interesting to see that when you have alcohol, you have a lot of more particle passing. But you will see that we will have no more matter. So the matter is not more. You have a lot of things, probably much of nanobubbles, and maybe a little bit oil that are disappearing when you make a lyophilization. These are the results that are published. So at your left side, you have lactose 30CH and cuprum 30CH at your right side. You see directly the difference. You see that the most of them here in the control is behind 100 nanometer, and the other one, you see it's much, the spreading of the results are much broader. We make 6 different manufacturing lines. That is a resume of all of them, and you see the difference is clear. This has been published already. That is a publication. You see a difference between the control. The control is simply water. You have the lactose control. You have the cuprum CH and cuprum undynamized cuprum. And the difference is that it is statistically clear, only not here. Here you don't have a difference. So, and when you have a lot of lactose residual, you cannot see the difference. It's better and better you are going through the analyze. Because we have seen particle spacing, now we need to know what's that. Is that nanobubbles or not? Therefore, we chose, together with the professor of university, said you can isolate your particle. So if it is material, you will see it by lyophilization. Lyophilization, you put 100 milliliter of the solution in the deep freeze, min 40 degree, and then it comes in the machine. In the machine, it will go to min 90 degrees Celsius. So very low and very low pressure. It means that this ice, the ice you see here, will not go into water. It will go in damp. So it will go out without passing through the water. And at the end, you have a residue. You don't see it very clear, but it is here. It's about, that's lactose. Lactose, it's about 20 microgram per gram, so it's not so much. That as a result. That are all the remedies we have already finished. So there are no other university for electron microscopy. That takes a lot of time, but okay. This lactose is the one that you see, it's a control. Lactose is very little amount of material. This lactose at the beginning, and then is diluted in water, and diluted and dynamized. And here you see the difference between the different remedy, simply diluted and dynamized. You see that it is the most is about Silicea terra. I will explain why later on. Remember all this list of remedy because we are working now with that with Raman laser at this moment. This is now the next step. The aim here is to see the different products with the microscope, this microscopy, in microscopy. And you see that you have a trituration. Trituration is dry, so we can see it with the machine without problem. And at 3 THs, we have already a solution for Silicea. It needs only 2 trituration, but cuprum needs 3. And you see that progressively, during the process, you will have a different image. You see at 6 TH, you begin to be able to see the difference. Like in nano tracking analysis, it was also not clear at the beginning, but it became clear and clear. So you can only by seeing this image that you have at one side Silicea, on the other side cuprum. It's more little particles, and here you have a beautiful structure. And it's go on, but we are limited in time, so I will spare you to there. It's more beautiful when it's on YouTube, so you can find it back. And the next step now, we see that we have materials. The material is not the same in cuprum than in Silicea through the 6 manufacturing lines. So we need to see what it is. And the first step is to use EDX or EDS. It is energy-specific X-ray analysis. We are putting an X-ray on the particles, and they analyze the electrons that are stimulated so they can see what kind of ions we have. That's an example, is lactose 30CH, and you have to see that we have carbon, we have oxygen, we have a lot of sodium, we have magnesium, we have silicium, we have calcium, cuprum. You see that is a percentage of the product we are analyzing, and the mean error is much bigger than the amount we have. So it means this is nothing. We have no cuprum in that kind. It is an error of the machine, and it's normal. He calculates his own error, so he gives it as mistake. If the error is bigger than the result, of course, it's not a good result. This is for cuprum. You see the same compounds, but if you remember the figure is not the same. The numbers are not the same. So the amount, the percentage is not the same. So when you do that, you can, that is already been published. So you will see that the atomic composition, according to the weight of the sample, so in lactose we have only 18 microgram per gram, but much more for silicea as example, and you have to take that into account. And when you do that, you see that you have a specific atomic composition from one material to another, and you can also see a difference if you have dynamization or no dynamization. So we see that we have another composition. Already we saw it with the microscopy. So what is it? Because we see ions, but ions are making molecules. So that are molecules. Which one? Therefore, we need to change again, and we asked the university, Professor Nisten did that, to use the Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy. With spectroscopy, we are analyzing the molecules this time. This is not ion isolated, but regroup in a specific compound. And now is a surprise, because now you will know what you have in your remedy. In all your remedy, even blank control water, after a while you will find the same, but the proportion is not the same, but you will find that. What's that? You have a typical profile of hydrogen carbonate of sodium, bicarbonate, if you want, of sodium. It's all. You have that. From where is it coming? That's a good question. And you see the typical for carbonate, common carbonate is in green and the bicarbonate is in blue. So you see the different compounds, green and blue. So if we have that, we say, okay, it's always the same, so it's not differentiation possible. Oh, you are sure? That's what we are going on. This kind of survey is blinded at this moment. You see here numbers. The university get only numbers. They don't know what it is. They are making the analysis and they see this one. Typical for the bicarbonate, you see that there is a difference between all of them. You can quantify the amount of bicarbonate by measuring the area behind the peak. You can do that also for the carbonate. The carbonate are here, and you can have a measurement. You can do for bicarbonate at 2 parts. It is a stretching of CO. That has already been published by Indian teams. They saw only this. They didn't consider the other one. But if you have bicarbonate, you have that, of course, because bicarbonate, I will show you what it is, have that. So another point now. So we know we have bicarbonate in all our remedy, and even in the control. Okay. But it was always product that was prepared in pure water. The reality of your pharmacy is that you get your product into alcohol. 30% mostly for distribution, 70% of alcohol for conservation in the dilutake. So the alcohol play a role, yes or not? That is the next question, because you see we are going step by step. The first step to see if there is an electric field to add when you have homeopathic solution with alcohol. So these are 3 manufacturing lines of hydroalcoholic solution of cuprum versus lactose. And this is pure alcohol without anything at the same percentage, and it has the other one. You cannot make any differentiation when you have alcohol. So we said, it's when you have alcohol, we have a problem. What's the problem? And here you have the response. If you dynamized your product, these are dynamization of 6 manufacturing lines of gelsemium, and when you are this 65% of alcohol, volume means 70% normally. So you see that when you don't dynamize, you have that And that as a result you saw with slides before. If you dynamize 10 times manually, 100 times with a machine, 100 times manually, that's a little bit work, you see that the results are totally different, meaning that the alcohol, when you dynamize it, show back the difference between remedies. So you need to dynamize to see it, because the amount of alcohol is so big that it is putting the information beside if you don't dynamize. So the pharmacists are making preparation have to know that before making an impregnation of a granule, they need to dynamize it. 10 times with the hand is okay. You don't need to do more, but you need to dynamize before putting the products on the globules. And that's the same when you have, at this moment, you have 30% alcohol, but who lower the amount of alcohol or the difference is not so big at this moment. But there is still a difference that is statistically significant. This is not yet published. And you see then, when you have dynamized, you can make a separation only by pH of the two substances. Here you have gelsemium 3 manufacturing line and solvent 3 manufacturing line, this without anything into it. The next step is ongoing at this moment. I have not yet any results, is laser spectroscopy. Laser spectroscopy, as the first spectroscopy, we were using infrared light. This time we will use laser. The 3 frequency we have are here. Most probably will be the one in the middle that will give the best spectrum. Why are we going to this step? Because this step allows to make measurement in alcoholic preparation. So the first one was impossible. It must be dry, so it will be no alcohol. It has been disappeared. And in this case, we can look at the remedy like it is in the dilutate. That's the kind of result we can get. It's not our result because we are ongoing. There is a student making a thesis on that at this moment. The measurement will be finished probably this week. It must be finished. And I hope that we will have the result at the end of the year, because that has priority for us. Another one that is not published but already done since 10 years, about 10 years, it's electrophotonic analysis. Why is it not published? Because the methodology is totally new and unique. It's not validated, so we will not publish before validation of the machine. That's our strategy. But it is interesting to see already this. So the aim is here to use electricity. You put a granule, the step between solution and granule, we need to know if the granule is still containing the information we have in the solution. And therefore, we can put the granule impregnated or not. We put an electrode with 12,000 volts, and you do it a little time. Electrons are stimulated, and you stop it. And when you stop, the electron come back to their normal position, and they emitted light. And this light can be analyzed. That is electrophotonic analysis. We can do it for drop also, so for liquid drop. Only 10,000 volts at that moment. This is the electrophotonic analysis of a pure granule without anything into it. That's this one. So you see a very beautiful image, and that is impregnated with solvent. No difference. It's really the same structure. You don't see really a difference. And this is, we have all image of all dilution, but this is only the Korsakoff dilution. And you have above, you have the cuprum, and below you have gelsemium. When you take only the 200 here, you see that the axis of this one is like that, and here is like that. So the structure of the emitted light is not the same. that is totally different between the two remedies. After 2 days of measurement, blinded, the pharmacist that was with me and myself could say, this cuprum, this is sesame, because it was mixed, it was blinded. But you can see it really with the image. And statistically, it gives that. You see directly the total difference between the two remedies, cuprum and gelsemium. You don't need a complicated statistic to show it, but it's not published yet. We hope to be able to do it. So the conclusion of this basic research at this moment, homeopathic remedies are not empty nuclear magnetic resonance. A specific chemical-physical interaction with the solvent in its container and ambient air is observed and measurable. Ambient air. From where are coming the carbonates? Because we don't have the material from the beginning. It's coming from CO2, from the air. And the sodium is coming from the glass. If you do it in polyethylene, you don't have the same formula. So to make a preparation, you need soft glass. Because if you use Pyrex glass, you will also not have the same results. So the sodium is very easy to kept out of the glass. Silicium not, is very structured. So the keywords are now structuration of the solvent in a specific polarity stabilized by polarized component. All components, alcohol, water, bicarbonates, carbonates are polarized. And that is important to know because the information is there. Explaining, I said I will give to you about the bicarbonate, the hydrogenocarbonate of sodium. It's a very special component. It's ice when you are here. It begins liquid here. And the amount of water that is incorporated up to 37 degrees, your body temperature, is 10 molecules of water that is into the carbonate of sodium. So you have 10 water molecules into it, structured. When you are on 37 degrees, it decreases, you have 7, and at the moment you don't, you have only 1, and then you don't have any more if you are eating it a lot. And then you have a carbonate of sodium alone, but this is not our purpose. We are working here in the living being. And that's what's happened. You see here, that is a carbonate. You see the carbon in the middle, gray here, black here. Oxygen, the red one. You have natrium, that is blue. And you have water, that is molecule of water. And it makes this kind of structure. This structure can be more or less compact depending on the amount of bicarbonate you have. And we know that the amount of bicarbonate is totally different. So it means that the particles that are forming into water is specific. So it explains everything we have seen till now. It's this kind of comportment. And you see also that water molecules that are incorporated are not always fixed by chemical, but only electrical. It means that this particle is bipolar, because you have expression of water of sodium as the both sides, and it depends on the structure of it. And this is confirmed by the work of other teams that are totally different. We don't do that. That is the work of Stephen Cartwright. It is a professor at university in London, and he's working on solvatochromic dyes. A solvatochromic dyes is just a product that can get a color when you put polarized molecule into it. So if you want to know a polarity of a molecule, you can use different components. The color is different. You use a colorimeter, and you know how much component you have. That is very simple to do, very easy to reproduce. It has been already reproduced in Brazil too, in Sao Paulo. And that is what you have. So when you have that, you need to have to have a change of color, you need to have increased polarity. That is what you have to understand. So the polarity is different with the amount of bicarbonate you have in your solution. And sodium bicarbonate is a weak base, and it dissociates sodium in bicarbonate in water. As such, it is polar. So therefore, the signal E found can be explained by our own research. This is something I will not read. It is a text of Stephen Cartwright. You will have that if you want, but it is difficult to have an interpretation about it, but it is intramolecular change transfer with polar potency. So that is a conclusion he has at this moment, confirmed by different teams. So the polar system is the information. So the homeopathic potentization process may be called dynamic pharmacy because dynamization, that was already an assumption we get with a nuclear magnetic resonance. We have probably a polarized system. I say probably, but I'm pretty sure. The stability of the system could be related to both chemistry and physics. I will explain more about physics. Polarized system, why I said maybe, because it's not yet published. So what you have seen about bicarbonate is published once, but not yet confirmed publication. It will come. And now the hypothesis, second part of the presentation. When you want to maybe the oldest one here, remember the tapes? The youngest one, we don't use that anymore, but we had that when we were young. And it is simple. You have a polyethylene support, and you put magnetic particles into it, and then you have your base, your carrier of your information, and you can get information. In our case, we have water, and we have the bicarbonate into it. So the carrier is, and bicarbonate as a carrier, and you have a structure, and that is quantum physics. You have coherence domain in your water. Coherence domain means different polarity system, and the information can be put there. That is the information. So it is a carrier we are looking at, and the information is specific of the substance. So when you have your tape, you have your sound, you can register it, and you can put it on the radio, and you listen, and it gives a sense. You know that it is reserved and can be animals or plants. A plant can also react to music or whatever. In our case, we have a nuclear magnetic resonance, so we have a magnetic field somewhere, and plants recognize that too. So that is demonstrated. So you can see if you put a different substance with a nuclear magnetic spectroscopy there, you can see the difference. So it is an analogic system to explain homeopathy. But as you know, we have no tapes anymore. Why? Only because there are poor stability over time. The stability is about 30 years maximum because it is deleted. Therefore, they make CDs at this moment. It's already no other things, but CD was there to give stability. CD normally don't destroy. You get your information. In homeopathy, the problem of water, pure water, alcohol may be a conservant into it, but you make it into pellets, and that is the way to conserve your information. We test granules for more than 25 years by electrophotonic analysis. The signal is better and stronger after 20 years than the fresh one. It's not yet published. Dynamic pharmacology means informational medicine, and we get back to the materiality to immateriality if you want, but it is some kind, you have a carrier that is material, and you have the information. Is that something that can work in a living being? Provings, you know everything about it, you know therapy, you know, but is that something that can be explained only by the system, your system, your genetic system? That is already been published a lot of time, and Bellavite, Professor Bellavite from Italy, is the one that did the most publication about that. That's a resume from 2015, so there are more at this moment. But I put this one because you have here gelsemium. You know gelsemium. You know what it is. What happens when you put this technique? So the technique is just you have the gene on a platelet, you put your remedy. It may be a conventional remedy, it's the same. It's a totally a tool that is used every day by laboratory, and you put it onto it, and when a gene recognizes a remedy, it may be molecular or homeopathy, it will react. Or it will not react if you don't recognize it, so it do nothing, or is stimulated, or is down-regulated. That has three possibilities: doing nothing, stimulated, or down-regulated. For gelsemium, 7 genes are stimulated and 49 genes are down-regulated. The 7 genes in question are linked to the heat shock protein. This explains why gelsemium can work for flu, for influenza. It was one of the 4 big remedies used in the world for the epidemic of COVID. Arsenicum, phosphorus was 2 other ones. But the 49 genes that are down-regulated is working about anxiety. So you have an explanation, a biological explanation in the body. That is very important, but now we need to know the interface to get to that. But that is proved. So homeopathic remedy can get stimulated, regulated by epigenetic. You don't change a gene, you stimulate it, or if you don't regulate it, or if you do nothing, if it is not recognized. Of course, we have more than that remedy, so we have 6,000 remedies, so we have a lot of work to do. And now the question is homeopathy a placebo or is it not a placebo? That's the good question.
My name is Steven Baumgartner. I'm a physicist and I'm working at the University of Witten-Herdecke in Germany as well as at the University of Bern in Switzerland. And I've been doing research, basic research into homeopathic potentization now for about 25 years.
I am Leonie Bonamin from Brazil and I work in Universidade Paulista in São Paulo.
I'm Alexandre Tournier. I'm the chairman and founding director of the Homeopathy Research Institute.
I am Vladimir Voyekov, professor of the Faculty of Biology of the Moscow State University.
My name is Robert Hahn. I come from Stockholm, Sweden. So I have worked full-time with the clinical research in surgery, anesthesia, and very much in urology, actually, the past 25 years.
My name is Jens Behnke. I work at the Carstens Foundation in Germany, and we do research programs for complementary medicine and especially homeopathy.
I'm Rachel Roberts, and I'm Chief Executive of the Homeopathy Research Institute. Now, if someone says to me, homeopathy is placebo, the first thing I ask them is where they've got that information from. So they usually say it with a really strong opinion. So homeopathy is rubbish, homeopathy doesn't work. And what you find time and again is that most people don't actually know much about homeopathy.
People say that homeopathy is only placebo, and I tell you this is wrong. They cannot have read the literature, because if they do, they'll find a different result.
People that are of the opinion that homeopathic remedies are just placebo most probably are not aware of the current state of scientific literature.
I study homeopathy in laboratory, in the laboratory context, since 22 years ago. So I think I have a good experience to see the effect absolutely outside placebo. So the effects are there.
The best evidence that we have right now really is a meta-analysis by Robert Matty of individualized homeopathy against placebo control. And if we look at those trials, we see that homeopathy, individualized homeopathy, works. And this has been done with very rigorous methodology following the Cochrane guidelines.
It is not only placebo. This already is proved by the research which is made not only on animals or plants, but even on such a model system as isolated cell membranes, for example.
In total, we have evaluated 17 basic research models, bioassays, and different kind of preclinical measurements to address the questions: what is the nature of homeopathic remedies and whether they are different from placebo. And in 14 out of these 17 assays, we observed significant effects of homeopathic remedies compared to placebo.
We can see that homeopathy works in the outcome studies. You always have these effects comparable to conventional medicine, but with less adverse effects. There's several hundred studies of this type. And the other part are these randomized controlled trials. And there we have evidence that homeopathy works better than placebo. So it is not consistent with the data to state that homeopathy is placebo.
So what we find is we do have good quality positive studies that show homeopathy works. And all the experiments being done on homeopathy are done by well-trained scientists, most of them in universities. So if you're going to say homeopathy doesn't work, that does surprise me, because my 25 years in the sector, working with medics and scientists, is saying exactly the opposite. It's saying homeopathy works, it is not a placebo effect, it's real medicine.
So placebo exists, and in homeopathy you have placebo effect too, but you have not only that. And that is why I wish to present that. You can find this film on YouTube for the HRI without problem. So I put here a new diapositive of Stefan Baumgartner, and you saw it in the film, but it is important to know that his process, he's doing research already with Madeleine Bastide too. I met him years ago there with a kind of group that Madeleine Bastide created in that time. And in 1996, he had a question. It's not homeopath, it is just a researcher. And it worked at the University of Bern at this moment. And you see that he didn't know, but he was open-minded to test it on plant models, like he presented in the film. And in 2010, he said, oh, maybe there is something after all the study already did. So it takes 14 years to get the question mark eliminated to come maybe. And now, today, I met him in Paris last week, and he said me, no, is yes. Homeopathy is a work behind Avogadro, so it is more than a placebo. And when you have that kind of conviction that is proved by, like he said in the film, by 17 different models, you have eliminated the impossible, and thus if it remained, it must be true. But the problem is, like I said, what is the interface? We know what it is in the remedy. We know that it can work in reality by clinical study, by laboratory surveys, on animals too. And how is that possible? That's a good question. How can we reach a more comprehensive physico-chemical level, biological, medical level? That's a good question. And that's also a slice of Stefan. And he said, of course, you don't have the molecules, so you cannot have the key that is coming into the receptor to make a reaction. And so he used the fact of the radio, so you have something that is just flowing in the air here. I am speaking here, but the people on the other world are hearing what I am saying only with that. And they need a tool. A receiver is a radio. But here it's speaking about receivers' quality. If you have a cell line and you use different model, you must have a lot of change to get results. But the more complex the system is, the more results you will have. So human is more than 50% result in all surveys we can see. So that is important, that the behavior is important. So you need a kind of individualization. That are one example of animal survey with Gelsemium, with stressed rats, and the rats stressed treated by Gelsemium or diazepam, so benzodiazepine. So if you have that, you have the result that you have that biodiazepam, that is Gelsemium 9CH. But you see that some of the dilution don't work in that model. I don't say that Gelsemium don't work at 7C for other things, but for that model, it doesn't work. Therefore, we have animal experiment, you have lower than 40% result. But that result is even bigger than the one of benzodiazepine. So Gelsemium 9CH in this model is better than conventional medicine. So when you have that, you cannot say that this is placebo. Of diazepam is also placebo, I don't know, maybe. I don't think that people will accept that. And that is a study of Fras, you know, he's an urgentist, and it was at the acute service, people that had problem with intubation and a lot of mucus that are producing, and they give at that moment Kalium bicarbonate C30 CH, and the result is really above 50%. They could be extubated because they could have a respiratory recovery. It has been published and it is well known. And you have the same for the time staying in the acute unit because going to another service. So when you have the danger for life, when you use homeopathy, you have a lot of better change to go through the problem. And this is more than 50% results, even with only one remedy the same for everybody. So that is important to know. What is not individualized homeopathy? And there is another question that Stefan is working on with his team. It's about the variability. When you are putting a lot of people together to make a survey, you see individuality, variation of the result. Also for plants, he saw that some plants are responding better than a colleague in another Petri box. And classical medicine is external intervention of your substitution. You make substitution by thyroxine as example, or you are blocking some overreaction by anti-inflammatory product as example. You have a cause-effect result, and you can have a very good statistic when you have that. The response is depending of the dose, so that it's easy to make double-blind studies. In homeopathy, you have stimulation of autoregulation of the living organism, and the cause of the effect lies within the plant of the animal of the man. It means that the outside, there is only stimulation or information, and the degree of freedom is bigger. This can be analyzed, and is now doing statistics about variability. Or more the variability is big, or better homeopathy will work in percentage. That is his work he's doing now. I take back, this was in the film, if you remember, and I will give you a little bit more explanation that has begun in a short film. This is published, of course. It is published, Robert Matty, Systematic Review. I was one of the assessors of the literature down here. And this is how it works. It is totally classical. You read a publication, and you see if you are respecting different principle of homeopathy, globalization, individualization, and so on. Is it described or not in your paper to explain after that the quality of your paper? If it is not explained, you have a problem. It can be reduced in in the valorization when it is totally conventional. Reliable study only, the result is very, very big in favor of homeopathy, meaning there you have everything, individualization, globalization, all principles of homeopathy are here. And if you remove only some of the needed component, you see that the results are going down, but it's still there. So this is, all studies is positive. So of course you have some negative, but when you take all studies together, results stay positive. That is the explanation why they said it is not a placebo. The conventional have to take that. In the Lancet publication, they removed all publication with 2 good results. That is really a manipulation that has been demonstrated and published, and nobody can take the Lancet publication as a reference because it is a biased publication. But that is a reality. That has been published with the methodology of Cochrane. It is an international convention, and its selection has been done. The better the individualization, or more undoubtful results are appearing. That is what reality is. So I am already at the end of my presentation, but I hope you will have a lot of questions. So individualization, as you saw in the clinical survey, is a key for dynamic pharmacy. More research needs to be done on polarized system, because we are convinced, but we have to prove it, that this polarization system is the system getting the information. So it is polarized more or less, depending on the amount of bicarbonates. And we know that the interface is the recognition of this polarization by our sensitive organ in the mouth, in the nose, but even as the skin. If you put a product for oversensitive people and lick it and you are rubbing it on your bill, you will have a result, because the sensitive cells will recognize the polarization. So they don't need the molecule in the receptor, only the information about the polarization of the product is enough. And this has been already demonstrated for epigenetic, and homeopathy is really working there. So you have an information, polarize it, you give it to the receiver, plant, animal, man, and when he recognizes that information, that is the individualization needed, it will generate neurokines, and then all the process chemically will happen in your body. So it's just another method to get just to the good regulation of your system without toxic effect, because you don't have the toxic molecule into it, you have only the information. So, thank you for your attention.
So, thank you very much, Michel, for this magnificent presentation. I cannot say more than that, but really you showed us how the research is being done, and how going step by step, you were able, your team, to understand better and better the mechanism of action of our homeopathic remedies. This is fantastic. The use of this kind of support by the machines, by this kind of analysis, this is really scientific research. And what's interesting, and you showed it very well, thank you also, you showed us that what is on the tradition of homeopathy, what is an empirical approach, is confirmed by the scientific research. One of the key points of our remedy preparation, of our homeopathic preparation, is dynamization. Hahnemann called it dynamis forces, so it was the way he was considering to make the remedies potent in order to make the energy that was inside to come out. This was her idea about what he called the quintessence, the fifth essence. And now you show us how this process of diamidization proves that the homeopathic remedies become active. So this is fantastic, how you prove with your research this approach, this empiric approach from Hahnemann. So this gives us a very big support for the future, and we want to thank you very much. So please, thank you very much.